I said, why me? I ate organic food. I was good to the earth. I was a milk hauler and watched all these beautiful farms go away. We're a very foolish society. We had a sustainable lifestyle here.
In April. I grew up on the local Bad River Indian Reservation here. It was a time of kerosene lamps, wood heat, outhouses. We hauled our water from the town pumps. And the evening meal was usually some kind of wild game. We also harvested wild rice. We made maple syrup and maple sugar, collected berries, and that was pretty much the lifestyle when I grew up. And many of our people still follow all of those practices. And now that these special interests, the lumbering interests, the mining interests, commercial fishing and all of these other interests have acquired all of this land and left us with these little postage stamp sized reservations. Now they want to come in and poison whatever we have left. And I don't know how much time I have left, but
this presentation, or
give me a couple minutes more.
You're a professor too, Joe.
But anyway, these chiefs that signed this treaty were 5 generations back from myself. But 5 generations isn't that long a time. In fact, until my mother and father passed away, there were 5 generations of my family that were living. And so when Chief Blackbird and Chief Condeacon signed that treaty of 1854, they were looking at my grandson's generation. He was here this morning. He just turned 6 years old. He's a hockey player now, like those Chicago Blackhawks. So anyway, I'm opposed to any legislation that would be different than the legislation that's already on the books. Now, we have a mining moratorium law in regard to sulfide mining. And so I can't see why taconite mining should be given any special consideration. Miigwech mio.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Bill Whalen, Kelly Westland, Connie Frank, Jamie Dunn.
You're listening to special coverage of the listening session on the iron ore mining bill on 97.7 WRNC-LP Ashland, 90.9 WUWS Ashland, and 91.3 KUWS Superior.
Not to make any criticism of what we've heard. I think we're all more enriched by all the words that have been expressed today. I know the audience is appreciating the opportunity. Bill.
Hi, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming up to our area. I'm Mayor Bill Whalen of Ashland. A little bit of background on myself. I have a finance degree, so I understand how you can present numbers to make them look the way you want them to look. Doesn't mean you have to lie, but you can present them one way or the other, so I understand that. I also was a business and developer for 9 years, bought and sold businesses, had my own businesses, so I understand how important economic development is and how important work is to our area, which I work on constantly. And also was the treasurer of an exploration company and oil company. And from that I learned there's trade-offs in extraction industries. So when you go into the oil industry, you're going to have cleanup costs and you're going to have water and air things you have to deal with, and there's a balance in that. And in Michigan, they held us to the line there on that. I am against poor legislation. I don't see why we have to change the current legislation. I haven't been convinced that it has to be changed yet. And I'm going to give you 2 real-life examples that I'm dealing with right now, right today, between having no legislation and having good legislation. At the moment, I'm dealing with the cleanup of a gasification plant on our bay. It started probably in the 1900s. It will probably be 100 years before we're finally completing this process. At the time that someone decided to cut a hole in the floor and dump the residue in the hole, and it migrated to our bay, which now has polluted 16 acres underwater, plus the upper bluffs, there was no legislation. So now we have a process going on since probably, it'll be 15 years working with the DNR and the EPA, and they've been helpful. I mean, there's nothing, that's the process we have, and that's the process we have to work with. And thank God we have a process to work with, where we'll come to a conclusion, but it'll be probably 15 years approximately, and let me tell you, it's a wonderful place to have attorneys. I mean, they're just having a wonderful time with us. I've been in rooms with them and constantly going on. I'm glad I had my experience working with them in the past. So there's a case when you have no legislation of what you're dealing with. And so we've lost the ability to develop our waterfront and improve our tax base here in this rural area because of this. So that's an example of no legislation. Now the other example with some legislation is our ore dock. Now we have the longest ore dock in Lake Superior, 1,900 feet long, and I had entered into negotiations with tearing it down. But because I have legislation and I have agency rules, I could work with the DNR on this, and they were able to support us on this. Now, between both the gasification and the ore dock, I had to deal with our air, our water, our infrastructure, and our roads. Just what you're looking for here, up here in the mining that you're dealing with now. But with legislation, I was able to negotiate. And I want to say the railroad has been very cooperative. It's amazing what you can do when you keep the attorneys at a distance and you work with reasonable people who have a good moral compass. We're doing quite well with this. But I was able to, the negotiations got down to water quality and air quality, and I wouldn't budge. I wouldn't give them a permit. And finally they said, okay, we'll work with you in the DNR. And now we're doing our cleanup, and we're assured that our air and our water will be, I won't have to shut our water plant down. I will not have to do that. And we'll get the project done. But that's because we have legislation and agency support in the process. I'm a prophet right now. Let's say it took 100 years from this gasification plant. What's it going to take out here at the Penokees? That material and air will reach that bay. Now, the mining is going to last, what, 30 years, possibly? Let's say it takes 25 to 30 years for the impact to hit the bay, but it will hit the bay. Is there going to be a mayor, a council chair, city administrator, someone what are we going to be doing? What kind of process are we going to have to deal with this type of cleanup? If I'm dealing with a $130 million cleanup just from a small gasification plant, are we going to be looking at a $500 million cleanup 100 years from now? So if we don't have good legislation in place that you can work with, we'll never meet our means, and we won't protect ourselves. And we have to look at that today. The only way to change the future, the only way, is what you do today. You can't change the future once you're there. So it's very important that your legislation covers us and protects us. Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you for testifying today, Mayor. I didn't know your opinion on this bill, and I think it's so important that legislators across the state hear from local elected officials, because those are the people that are entrusted by communities to make decisions in their backyard, and nobody knows their region better than the folks elected at a local level. And today we've had the mayor of Ashland, the mayor of Washburn, the mayor of Bayfield, the chairman of the Bad River Reservation, and other elected officials give testimony, and I think it's very important for us to hear from elected officials, and it also takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that as an elected official at the local level, because this has been such a polarizing and emotional level for a lot of folks on both sides of the issue. So thank you for your testimony.
Well, thank you. I went through some of celebrity status because I was a mayor for a year, and they tried to recall me, so me and Walker had the same opportunity. So when you stick your neck out, you know, you're going to be a target.
You're not allowed to mention that word.
Sticking your neck out? Bob, you're a great example of sticking your neck out. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Westland, Connie Frank, Jamie Dunn, Michael Murtis, Joe Danrose, Rusty Barber, Amy Wilson, Glenn started. I'm going to read a few just so in case some people may have to go. I'll let you know we're in here. Kathleen Ringberg, Connie Barber. Okay? Thank you.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for coming up here. I really do appreciate the time that you're taking to come and listen to the folks that are here, because I know that it has been kind of a challenge for us to make our voices heard in the southern part of the state. My name's Kelly Westland. I serve on the Ashland City Council. I did have an opportunity to speak before the committee a couple weeks ago down in Madison, and I just wanted to come back and reiterate some of the things that I think are really important. In this whole discussion, we've talked a lot about the potential jobs that a mine could bring. And I think that what it comes down to is that, yeah, we need jobs, but we don't need a mine to have those jobs. Right now in this community, there are some really great things going on, some different sustainable opportunities. And some folks have spoken to those in terms of forestry, tourism, recreation. Agriculture is something that is growing very, very quickly. When I testified in Madison, somebody asked me a question, and they asked if folks from Ashland County had reached out to the folks in the Hurley area to share some of these opportunities with them. And really, I have to admit, that was the first time where I kind of stopped and said, you know, we've been a little selfish with this good thing we've got going on here. You know, Ashland, Washburn, and Bayfield, we look across the bay and we can see our neighbors. You know, so we're a very tight-knit community. We can see the folks that we work with so often just over the water right there. You can look out the window and see it. And so it's really easy for us to work together and collaborate. But Hurley, it's a little bit further away. But I feel like if the folks there realize that there are a lot of other really great opportunities that are already doing good things for us, that it's something that we can expand on, that we can share with them. And I'd like to take an opportunity to reach out to any of these folks that are here from Hurley and say, you know, feel free to let us know how we can help and how we can start this discussion about these things that will bring the kind of prosperity that we're hoping for, but in a sustainable way. You might not be aware, but in addition to the growing local food system, right now I'm working for a cooperative that's buying products from 15 family-owned farms. These are multiple generations that are coming back and they're employing children on the family farms. We talk a lot about not wanting our young people to leave this area, but these are opportunities for them to come back and be a part of the family business and to keep that tradition alive. Some of these are 5-generation farms that are still going that are likely to be affected by this mine. Some of the economic benefits of such an effort, within the first 3 years of this particular cooperative, the revenues that have been generated, I mean, they're up in the 6 digits, you know, and we're just getting started. Right now what we need is more people growing more food, and we can't do that with bad water. So I just want to encourage you to consider the alternatives that we have here that we're already expanding, and how many of those things will be stopped if the impacts of this mine are able to, go through. We can't farm with bad water. We're also talking to each other about the opportunities for local investment. The UW Extension has been doing some studies to identify people who are willing to take their money out of Wall Street and reinvest it in a more localized version of kind of the same thing. And so far, we've identified a significant amount of money that people in this community are willing to reinvest in small businesses, in entrepreneurs, and innovation right here. We don't need a mine to have good jobs. I would just ask that you encourage anybody you think might be on the fence to really take a hard look at what they're proposing to do to this region. They're proposing to take away something we've been working very hard for that's doing good things, and to force something down our throats that we don't want. I guess that's it.
Connie Frank. Connie? Oh, there she is.
First, I'd like to thank you. Oh, did you? Okay.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. It's already afternoon already. Okay. Thank you for coming to our area. You've come many miles, and it's been a long several days, I know, for all of you, and we're really thankful that you are here. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, because I know you are advocates and you are our stewards that are watching over us. You joined our long fight to save the Penokees and to write reasonable mining laws so that we can have contested cases and such. My name is Connie Frank. I'm an educator in the area. I grew up in Ashland and had to get away, like many young people do, but here we are. We're back where we love the area. My family lives in the Penokee Hills. We live 1/2 mile from the headwaters of the Bad River. We live on Twin Lakes, one of the 5 lakes, or so they call them, puddles. And we are at the wetland area that's most directly and immediately affected by the proposed mine. We are within 2 to 3 miles of the open pit of Phase 1. And we are about 1 to 2 miles from the overburden, so hence our concern is very immediate and real to us. You have heard many different and important facts today, many pros and cons, and I could share some too. There's been an article in the paper that said, I wonder why the lobbyist of GTEC said that the day after their mining bill passed, they would produce a 1,000-page document on the mine. And my question to them is, why can't you show us that document up front and know what is being voted on? But I'm going to really speak from the heart because this is where we live. Sorry. And I'd ask you that you bring back our concerns and our frustrations to those who will be voting on the bills in the next few weeks, but have not seen fit to view our area or come and meet our people. They are our stewards of our state. They've been elected to offices, and their votes the next few weeks will affect our future here in the Penokees and the Bad River watershed long past their terms in office and our lifetimes. Please don't sell us out. We should not be fighting between a question of promise of jobs and a safe place to live. Each and every day, no matter how hard the day has been, we drive up those hills to our home. And we're grateful for the peace and beauty of where we live. And even though the area may not be in any economic boom, there's those of us who choose to stay because we feel we are far rich than any money could give us. We want sustainable jobs, and we deserve to keep our land and air and water clean. The health of those of us who live within mere miles of the proposed open pit and even closer to the overburden should not be for sale. We should not have to deal with blasts 2 times a week at the level of sonic booms or the red dust that will cover our homes, our lakes, and surely affect our wildlife. Mr. Kincaid of the West Virginia Mountain Top Removal Area stated that for each and every mining job that is created, 1 person will die directly of health results because of that mine, and 1 in every 10 children in the area will develop a nervous disorder. We deserve better. Excuse me. Our children deserve better, and our environment deserves better. So as you take this information, please carry that back to the other senators who are not here, and thank you again for your stewardship.
Thank you very much, Connie. Jamie Dunn? Okay, see Jamie. Michael Mertz, you're next.
Hi, I'm Jamie Dunn, Spooner, Wisconsin, and the Penokee Hills. I'm here to speak as a person that has spent my life up in the Penokee Hills fishing and hunting. I know the area quite well, as somebody way earlier said, and all the interactions involved there. To me, this comes down to 2 things. One, you guys are writing a bill. I think the old bill was fine. The original bill was fine. I think Senator Cullen's bill is the next best thing. I think AB1, SB1, just too many problems. One is the bill, and then the other one is the application of that bill to this site. Unfortunately, the bill, AB1, seems to be written specifically for this site, but I think the understanding has to be out to that there's other areas in the state that can also be mined under this bill, and I really wonder what those people would think, specifically folks in the Baraboo Hills area, places like that, if they realize that the application of this bill does allow the filling in of trout streams with the panacea that there can be some mitigation done somewhere else to replace that trout stream. The dewatering of the wetlands, the filling in of the wetlands. With this site here and the ore body, the orientation of the ore body, With the surrounding wetlands and such, there's just no way that this mine can be built without that overburden, which is a sulfide-bearing rock. That has been proven. That can't be done without the filling in the takings of those wetlands. Currently, those streams in there, the Tyler Forks, Billy Creek, Devil's Creek, those are outstanding. They're designated as outstanding resource waters, and they're that for a reason. That's because they're outstanding resources. This bill exempts the mine from that designation. That designation helps protect these because they are such outstanding resource. This bill requires the DNR to exempt them from certain wetlands and surface water laws unless it can be shown that it is going to be a significant impact. Great term, what is significant? When do things become significant? It doesn't change numeric standards, and the Republicans are right when they say that. It exempts them from the numeric standards. These impacts, at least in the Cullen bill, I know that's not what it's supposed to be called, those protections of the environment remain. SB1, AB1, no, it does not change standards, it just exempts them from all of that. This area it's not pristine. It's been logged over, it's had minor deep shaft mining done on it. There's been things that have happened here, but still for the state of Wisconsin, it is a pretty neat area. And I think the bill needs to reflect that there is a possibility that some ore bodies can't be mined just because of the specifics of where they're at and what's around them. And this falls into that category. I'm not against a mining bill, I'm not against mining, but it has to be done in places that can sustain it, that where you're not going to have the long-term runoff. The issues with the sulfide-bearing rock, as Mr. Fitz said, that is going to happen, that is a reality. You can try to control that through, say, a landfill type design, but it is still over time going to produce leachate. As time goes on, the production of that even picks up speed. So in 40 years, when the mining company can walk away, who's going to deal with those issues after that? Who's going to control those runoffs? Who's going to maintain the systems that have to be maintained forever, because those tailing piles will be there forever. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Michael? Michael Murtis, keep going, Jodan Rose, Rusty Barber, Amy Wilson, Kathleen Ringbird, Lonnie Barber, Elizabeth Bader.
Okay. Hi. Excuse me. Been sitting there a long time. My name is Mike Murtis. I'm from Washburn, and corporations seem to get their way a lot with the legislature, so I just thought I'd let you know that I was incorporated on October 8th, 1950 as a natural person. And also in the interest of full disclosure, Janet's not here, but I think I gave her $25 for the last election. So, now, I wasn't born in the area, but I was conceived here in Glidden. I haven't pressed my mother on any other details. It's just it was in Glidden, which is on the East Fork of the Chippewa River, about 15 miles south of the Penokee Divide. I'm now 70% water, but at conception, I was 94% water. And I consider the Penokee watershed as my third parent. That's why I moved back to this area. And I'm still happily enjoying life as a water-dependent being. My 4 younger siblings were all conceived as 94% municipal treated water. Yes.
Just sort of livens up the hearing a little bit. Keep going.
And it was in the city of Beloit, and that's always was deemed safe to drink. Well, One of my brothers is dead from cancer. 2 others have serious heart and lung problems, and my sister has kidney problems. Now, I know it's not scientific, but in my heart, the relationship is clear to me. The clean water in those hills gave me a start to a good, healthy life, and I don't have those problems. Now, this legislation that you're considering isn't about jobs or mining. It's about me. It's about what gives my body life. It's about water. A number of years ago, on what seems like a planet far, far away, there was cooperation by our elected representatives, Republicans and Democrats, who saw fit to enact regulations to protect Wisconsin's water from mining. They felt that our water was so precious that if anyone was going to disrupt the natural water systems by mining, they had to prove beyond any doubt that their activity would do no harm. Since that time, clean water's gotten even more precious. So how could someone conclude that the protection of this essential and decreasing resource should be weakened in any way whatsoever? And why would the protection of the water be any different for different types of mines? If your mother were going into the hospital to have heart surgery, would you allow the operating room to have a lower standard of cleanliness than if she were there to have her appendix removed? Of course you wouldn't. And it makes no sense to have different standards when it's Mother Earth who is undergoing the operation. I appreciate greatly the fact that you're here today, but I really think instead of a listening session, there should be an answering session where those people who are proposing the relaxation of our environmental protections for their corporate friends should have to answer our questions and justify why they're making those recommendations. A permit to mine is a permit to harm. Who's being represented if it's being made easier for those who are doing the harm? And finally, it's my understanding that what needs to be removed first to get at the ore is called overburden. I was given life by the clean water of the Penokees, and I'm willing to put my life, my body, on the line and declare myself as overburden, both figuratively and literally. I will have to be removed before any precious water is harmed, and I know I'll have plenty of company. Thank you.
Thank all of you for coming up to spend a little bit of time with us, to visit our home and to hear what we have to say. It's hard not to notice that the authors of SB1 are not here. And to me, that's just absolutely outrageous that they chose not to come for whatever reason. I'm a member of the Bad River Band of Lake Superior Ojibwe Indians, and that name says it all for us. Who we are, what we're connected to, what's important to us. That's our identity. We live that. Before things got started, we had a drum outside. We sang some songs. We danced for Mother Earth. That was not intended to offend anybody. That was a prayer to help us protect those things that are near and dear to us, those things that we need to live and to continue our lives in our way of life as we know it. difficult to stand here and speak in this particular forum. Like many other people here, I have so much on my mind, so many very strong feelings about all of this that I could sit here and talk for a couple of hours quite easily. And I'm guessing that a lot of the folks in the room here could probably do that as well. I think it's important, a little bit earlier, there was a gentleman who talked about how as the water works its way towards us from the site of the proposed mine, how it would be diluted by these other sources of water coming in. And I would like to say very bluntly that dilution is not a solution for pollution. I'd also like, and I think it's important to correct the record, and I'm not meaning to be offensive to anybody, but the Bad River and Kakagan River both flow into a very large, very pristine wetland area referred to as the Bad River and Kakagan Sloughs. It's huge, it's pristine, it's beautiful. Anybody who's ever been there knows what I'm talking about when I say that. And it's simply not true that water coming down the Bad River is not connected to the wild rice in the Kakagan Sloughs. It's not true. We have wild rice in the Bad River Slough as well, and in Honest John's Lake, and all throughout that huge freshwater estuary, that wetland complex collectively referred to as the Bad River Kakagan Sloughs. They are very much connected. In fact, when the Bad River floods, which is not exactly an infrequent occurrence, we actually have water from the Bad River that goes directly into the Kakagan. So again, I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but I think that's a very important detail for people to understand. This is our home, and as a member of the Bad River Band, this is our ancestral homeland, where all of those generations before us lived and loved and rocked and talked and did those things that they taught us how to do, that we still do today. And we will not stand idly by and let that be thrown away to let our homeland or our way of life be sacrificed by something like this, by SB1 legislation, anything. We will not stand by and let that happen. Several people today have talked about our responsibility to the future generations, and that's a very real thing. And when we think about impacts to people, it's not just those of us who are alive today, who are walking around here today. It's the future generations. And you know, as time moves forward, there's so many people who are going to live in this place, and I think that it's a betrayal to their future to do anything that that would harm that for them. One last thought that I'd like to share. This past round of elections in November, heard a lot of talk about debt and how it's immoral to pass that along to the future generations. And I'd just like to leave you with a thought. To me, I think it's just as immoral, if not more so, to burden the future generations with a natural world whose integrity has been diminished by this type of activity. Me rich, Neil.
Rusty Barber. Rusty.
Bewely the way my one do. Me what's rain done. Beers on and ma. Habitus in the cars while I was sitting in the day. Or dollars a guy again, then when you buy on. Nish to know some organish. You can use your my day when. Minwa guy. You can minwa guy you can use your just the way again. First off, my name is Rusty Barber in English. Abbott's halfway in my Anishinaabe name. I'm from the Fish clan, the Bullhead clan. I'm from Lakota, a little bit south. And I'm here to join all of you, and especially my uncles and my aunties, my grandfathers, my relatives that are here, and all the other reserves here in Wisconsin to join in this endeavor to speak against mining in the Northland here, our ancestral homelands. I know I spent 20 years in the Army and I retired. I retired as a Master Sergeant in the infantry. And I was always told before we did something, we always did a real good reconnaissance. We got all the information we needed. But the most important thing, if at all possible, you went down and you looked. You looked at what was going to happen before, during, and after whatever mission you did. And number one, if anybody could raise their hands and say, did anyone go out to Virginia and look at a mine? Anyone here? Yeah. Okay. I did. I just recently went out and visited my grandson out in Tucson, Arizona. In the 1800s, they had the Pima mine, copper, shaft mining. Well, technology has changed. Sulfide and every other chemicals that they use to extract the minute pieces of copper after the large pieces are gone. And when I looked across that mine that's almost 2 miles long by a mile wide by almost a mile deep, I saw 2 trucks, an excavator, and that's all I saw in that mine. Then we went up into the plant where there was a mixer going around with a slurry. What kind of chemicals, I don't know. But it created bubbles that floated up to the top. And the copper stuck itself to that bubble. And as the arms went around with the paddles like that, that froth would go off. And I didn't see a whole lot of people working there. I think most of the work was done to clear the land. Then after that, all the experts come in, and that's where they go. We even see our young people going to North Dakota looking for that. When that's done, they're coming back home. And what are the people back home over there that we tore up their land? They're going to have nothing but a pit. Something that will never recover. And the tour guide that I asked at the Tucson mine out there in Pima, I said, well, when it's all said and done, what are we going to do with it? They said they talked with the Tucson City Council and said that we'll use it as a landfill for the next 500 years. Not very good.
But also I'd like to commend Senator Schultz for being here today. We wish. But most importantly, when we talk about the Ojibwe prophecies, they said this earth was cleared a couple of times before this. You talk about a great flood or something that happened here because we weren't good stewards of the land. Maybe what's happening today, we don't know. But we talk about our 7 generations, we want to look forward to what they have and what we leave for them. A legacy of a large mine in the northern part of Wisconsin. And when I drive on 77 going through the Penokee area, I see 2 townships there. Ghost towns of mining's past. You can see the shale on the top of the hills. They have nothing there. It might have boomed for about a second. Because we live here in this earth for only a second. 70 years, 100 years is nothing but a millisecond of time. And we talk about eternity and our ancestors that have run on. But now, I relay a story that I know about just from a couple generations back that my uncle Bewely, Eddie Benton, had lived through. My grandfather and my grandmother talked about. And Senator Jauch knows about that, the Chippewa Lodge. Back in the early 1900s, 1905, 1907, we had our own township on the Ojibwe Reservation. It was gerrymandered to take that voting power out of there, their words, their wisdom, their voice. And I see that today, that same gerrymandering. I see it. I witness it in my district. Mr. Petrowski don't even want to come up and talk to us. And so I thank the leaders here in the state of Wisconsin for allowing this listening session here today. But when our grandfathers, great-grandfathers walked that land of 1854, the boundaries of the Ojibwe Reservation, they picked out the prime, most precious, pristine waters, full of berries, full of animals, full of wild rice. And it was said that 25,000 pounds of wild rice was harvested annually. Today, we have no rice, none, zilch. We're introducing it into our cranberry marshes now. Muskegon. They flooded that land, and there was promises of, we'll move your village, we'll move your cemeteries, we'll build you homes, we'll give you a school, we'll give you a blacksmith. We had a temporary removal, and that was it, nothing. No homes, no nothing. We're empty promise. And it breaks my heart to think about that, because when I think of my Uncle Eddie, he talks about his grandfather and his grandmother crying because they had to move, getting on a trailers, horse and buggy to go. And so the most important thing that I want to mention today, that our senators and representatives standing before us today, this is democracy. Here, you are here, you're giving us your ears, you're looking at us and you're hearing us. The plea of the people to take a real hard look at what's going to happen. The northern Wisconsin, we have tourism all of our lives. And I've heard Joe Dan Sr. talk about we live off the land. And some of us still do. And that's something that we can pass on to our children and their children. And so, hear us and keep up the good work that you're doing here and listening to us here today. And if all possible, there is no good mining. We got acid rains coming in out of other countries, spoiling our waters. And what that does is it raises the mercury in our fish. And our women that are bearing children can't eat that fish, or they have to watch how much they can do it. They're denying a simple right of clean air, clean water, and don't desecrate our Mother Earth. Miigwech.
Thank you, Rusty.
You're listening to a special live broadcast, a listening session on the Democratic and Republican iron ore mining bills on 90.9 WUWS in Ashland, 91.3 KUWS in Superior, and 97.7 WRNC LP Ashland.
Hi, I'm Amy Wilson. Thank you for having this listening session here. This is so nice. I'm adamantly opposed to AB1 and SB1. It is an insulting bill. We're very concerned about the changes this bill makes to all issues surrounding water. We're concerned about the deregulation of water protection this bill opens up for the rest of the state. And I know most people don't want to be monkeying around with mining bills, but personally, I would like to make the current bill much stronger. I really think it needs to be updated to our current times. Excuse me. Because the times have changed since it was written, it needs to be updated to include the protection of our climate from carbon loading. We need to include the carbon footprint of a mine to the environmental impact statement. We need any mine to have a plan to mitigate its carbon footprint. We're using our air as a dumping ground, and it is causing our planet's climate to turn chaotic. At our house, we don't call it global warming, we call it climate chaos. Since I last spoke before you, Representative Bewely, Senator Jauch, Senator Schultz, last year in Ashland, Wisconsin has suffered a huge, deep drought. Duluth was flooded, Superstorm Sandy happened, wildfires out west were outrageous. The scientists have said that our continent is up by 1 degree, and Wisconsin is the second highest state as far as global change that's happening. I think it has to do with our lake. Last July, the lake was 20 degrees warmer than normal. 20 degrees warmer. So I don't buy magazines, but I bought you a magazine, and I would like this to be added to the testimony. This is called Lake Superior Magazine, and it has a wonderful article called Fires and Floods, Are We Prepared? It's got amazing photographs. And it's not just our area, but it's around the lake. So I would love you to be able to read that. It has shows you that we're in a hotter area. But now just a little bit about myself. Just a few days ago, I was having a little R&R, and for me, R&R is research and relaxation. So seriously, for fun, I was reading a chemistry book. It was...
I'm stuck on calculus.
And now I'm going to drag you into it. I was reading a chemistry book. It was an old 1978 textbook, and it caught my eye. It stated that it has been estimated, this is quoted from it, it estimated that if our CO2 production from all sources continues to increase at the present rate, it will take only 50 to 100 years for the Earth's temperatures to increase to a point such that the polar ice caps will melt, ... So that was written in 1978. I did the simple math for you. It's been 35 years. It has not been 50 to 100 years. We are in true trouble, and we no longer have the luxury to not deal with the worldwide problem. Wisconsin is the second fastest state changing through this warming and chaotic change. 2012 was the hottest year on record. I pray for the whole state of Wisconsin that we do not suffer through more droughts. And I just want to end by saying, please keep our mining laws strong. Please update and include legislation that will safeguard our climate by updating our mining laws to include the carbon footprint of any mine and its mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy, but before you go, could you either now or later tell me where you got the data that we're the second highest state in terms of screening towards global warming? Do you know?
I am not as computer savvy as my partner, Chris LaForge.
Okay.
And he read that to me, and I said, where?
I'd love to see that.
He
Thank
said,
you.
where? I said, where was it from? And he, we've been busy, so.
Okay.
I have to, I'm not an official representative of the LCO tribe, but I must say the LCO people support the Bad River people who are going to be affected by this possible mine. I have many cousins, relatives that are saying no. They're not here today, but they wanted me to speak, so here I am. One thing that brings to mind or scares me is these bills could, what is it called, streamline the process, I guess, for any future mines in northern Wisconsin. And there is a vanadium deposit near Little Round Lake is where I grew up. My grandchildren swim there every day in the summertime. And we talk about our future generations. And that is something it's not in the works now, but I guess someday it's possible that they could say, some mining company might come by and say, hey, let's check this out. Is it a possibility? And that's just something we can't even consider. So please vote no against any kind of mining bills, SB1, AB1, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie, for being here. Elizabeth Bader. Elizabeth? Okay, good.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you.
I just hope that I don't have to say good morning again.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Bader, and first of all, I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here today and for letting us bear witness. Whoa. Get in there. Is that going to fall out again? Having had a career change, I recently retired from the Wisconsin DNR after working at Copper Falls State Park for 10 years, which, by the way, sees 1,000 visitors a day during the peak tourist season. Thank you so much. That's going to fall out again. By the way, Copper Falls, during the peak tourist season, I guess I just said that, sees 1,000 visitors a day. I don't think they'll be coming to see a large hole in the ground, but that's not what I'm here to speak about today. I live with my husband Jordan in the foothills of the Penokee Mountain Range in the Marengo-Sanborn area in the Bad River watershed. 24 years ago, we decided to start a family. We knew we wanted to raise our children here in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. We had both spent time here, Jordan having lived here in Ashland and had fallen in love with the area. Yes, I am a transplant, and for the record, I don't have a college degree. Growing up in towns on the Mississippi and Illinois rivers, where the joke was, if you put your hand in the water, when you pulled it back out, it would be gone because of the pollution. I knew what a precious resource clean water was, and it was and is here in abundance. It wasn't because of the employment opportunities we wanted to live here. It was because of the clean waters, the lovely gently rolling hills, the wildlife, and the pristine environment, and of course, the friendly people. Over the years, we may have scraped to get by at times, but we never regretted our decision to make our home here. I stand here before you today to tell you that if this mine goes through, I fear for the health of our environment, for the health of our children and our grandchildren and their children, and for the wild things who can't speak for themselves. It's been said before, but it bears repeating. Once we let this genie out of the bottle, we can never put it back. And never is a long time. I would like to close by paraphrasing a wise woman I heard speak at the hearing last month. She asked, why is this mine the only option? Why is it take this mine or screw you, go ahead and starve? Why can't we come up with other safer ways to develop jobs in our area? Thank you.
Andrew? Andrew Wickman? Andrew, leave? Not here?
You're listening to a live
Just got the
broadcast
slip a
of
little
the
while
listening
ago. Who's gonna
session
speak in
on the
favor? And I'm trying to-
Democratic and Republican iron ore bills on 90.9 WUWS in Ashland, 91.3 KUWS in Superior, and 97.7 WRNC LP Ashland, Northland College Community Supported Radio.
Edith in the Star. In the Star.
That sound you're hearing is a costume, full regalia of that tribal member.
Hi.
Hi, Jade. Hi.
I'm Jade Lloyd. I'm 4. I live at Coggin.
She wanted to come in with me to let you know she lives at Kakagan.
Wait, I didn't hear about the Lorax.
Oh.
People are hurting of the trees. Did you see the Lorax? He's cutting down the trees.
Don't hurt our tree. Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep, you did a good job.
Did a wonderful job, and I must say that some of us have had the privilege of seeing her in a very important role in helping in the water ceremony. And she is such a proud member of the tribe, been so helpful. So we appreciate you being here today. You did a great job.
Bonjour. Niganigabo Wikwendij Nakaz Gaye Migzindo de Mashkisibian Onjaba Omat Onjaba Nasoma Deo Gaye Mede Wanakwetendo. Again, my name is Edith Leoso. I'm of the Eagle Clan. I am from here, right where everybody's been talking about the Kakagan Slough. I live on the Kakagan River, upriver from the sloughs. And I'm perhaps the last developed area for 4 miles along the river to that very beautiful place where I get to smell the rice growing every year. Something that not a whole lot of people have the opportunity to smell. It might be a little ironic that I stand before you here in a jingle dress made of copper, but I wanted to say a little bit about that mining. A lot of people here have talked about the treaties that were signed before. And there was this one individual who remembered that time of when we came here from the East Coast. And his name was Chief Tagwagane. And Chief Tagwagane lived right up at the end of MacArthur Avenue here, was his village. And with him his family brought a copper plate with them. And that copper plate they had etched along the rim of it for every generation that had been here since they came since their family came to this area. And it was the third generation that there was an etch for that generation, but also a man with a top hat on there, indicating the coming of the Europeans. Now, some might say that there are no mines here, but there are mines all along here. And even those mines that they're mining at today are on top of and have destroyed ancient mines that the native people had mined. But keep in mind, in your mind, that the native people also knew that the Creator had given everything for us to survive on this earth, on the surface of this earth. And it was in 1820 when the decision to enter into treaties and that came to be, and people seen that this area here was the richest in the entire country of surface copper. I know this because I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for Bad River. And I get to read this stuff every day. Oops, and I just broke this. So we know that those mines that we did, they were natural fissures in the land, that the copper was right on the surface of the earth. The silver was right on the surface of the earth in this area. And in 1820, they recognized that and came here and decided to try and mine as much as they could. When that treaty came along, the 1837 and 1842 treaties, the 1842 known as the Copper Treaty, those two treaties had to deal with mining. And in those two treaties, they are probably the least documented treaties there are out of all of them. You cannot find a whole lot of information verbatim that was discussed at those treaties. You can find, however, later on, Chief Buffalo stating, "I never touched that pen." What does that mean? In either one of those, he said, the 1837 and the 1842, I never touched that pen. Because during that time of treaty signing, they needed to touch the pen because they couldn't write their name. They didn't even make the X. As soon as they seen them touch that pen, somebody else put the X down and wrote their name down. So what does that mean? What that means is that the Lake Superior Chippewa here had never touched the pen, had never given the right to extract minerals from this place. So you may want to check back a little further there. Because I'm sure that those chiefs back then, should they have known the destruction of mining, they would have never touched that pen. The destruction of mining today and what it would do to the earth. O mama kinan, the water, nipe. I am sure they would have never touched that pen. And it wasn't till shortly after the 1842 that the Bad River people stood up and reiterated that back then, that our chiefs did not touch that pen. And to ensure that along the Bad River, that from far beyond the falls, all the way out to the lake, that it would be insured for us, that we would be able to live there forever, as long as we behaved. Okay, we'll not go there. But because of that, it was insured. Bad River Reservation was developed. And the key words there is we would be allowed to live. If something comes along that doesn't enable our lives to happen, then perhaps there has been... Oh, beautiful.
Somebody give it to me, because we got a whole bunch.
Oh, okay.
For,
Perhaps there has been a violation of our treaty. And with that, I want to say meet you. There's other important stickers I have to look at back here.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. That was very special. Thank you.
The Native people also knew that the Creator had given everything for us to survive on this earth.